So welcome to this session on designing data services for people. I'm Kate Wing. I run a nonprofit called Intertidal Agency. We're focused on making ocean and climate data more accessible, open, and shareable. But in part of my past lives and part of my work, I've done user research, user design, and a wide variety of kind of human-centered design activities and trainings over the years. And I thought this might be a great time to share some of those lessons with this community, since many of us are looking at having to change, adapt, shape, or otherwise modify data and data services we have often relied on. And I think Brianna's talk this morning, as well as your talk about your work you're doing in Prince Edward Island and globally, really emphasize the importance of hearing and understanding local perspectives and baking those stories, needs, and user interests into how we think about data and data services. So please sit at one of the tables that has art supplies on it. We will be doing very interactive things in this session. We will be doing very interactive things, in some cases, very quickly. I'm assisted by two great community fellows today, JC and Waleed. You will see Waleed taking pictures. If you don't want to be photographed, if you don't want to be recorded, raise your hand, let Waleed know. He will keep you out of the pictures and crop you. As with all ESIP sessions, we will be adhering to ESIP's community guidelines, so that includes both online and in the room. I want to reemphasize that because we're going to be doing some of these exercises with each other. Those of you in the back, please come up and sit at one of the tables with art supplies. Join us. So we are going to be talking to each other. People should feel comfortable sharing as much and not more that they might be expected to share with their partners. That is fine. We are practicing exercises in hopes that these will be building blocks for you in thinking about work you may be doing to design data services in the future. And then we also have plenty of time for debrief and discussion at the end of the day. So for those of you online, hopefully you have been able to look at this slide for a while. You have at least a piece of paper and a writing implement handy, and let's get going. So, start off by maybe taking a little sticky note, taking a minute to note in your journal. We're just going to take a minute or two silently to reflect on what does design mean to you. When you saw that this was a design session, what popped into your head? You can use whatever implement feels good for you to write on. Those of you online, we're going to ask you in just a second or two to put notes in the chat. JC has also pasted a link to the collaborative notes document. If you'd prefer to paste things there, you can. We'll be pasting some things into the chat as well. For those of you online, you'll notice the collaborative notes document also has a place for you to sign in. We'll be doing introductions in the room as well. And I am remiss in not introducing Kit Lewers, who is also my co-facilitator, and they are online, and we will be seeing their face later. So let's go around the room here now, and Waleed, I'm going to ask you to help me out with the mic running, and hear what some people said they thought of when they heard of design.
To me, design means better outcomes, thoughtful actions.
Great. Or pass it across.
Intentional planning to achieve a defined purpose.
Back.
I thought of it as building a framework, and I guess in context that would mean for resilient data. So yeah, design means building something that can withstand whatever scenario gets thrown at it.
Kit, what are some of the things you're seeing in the chat or seeing online in the notes doc?
So we don't have anything in the notes doc yet.
Does anybody want to post anything in the chat online? We'll take another comment here in the room. Mike.
Yeah, I wrote, design means constructed in a way that is pleasing and useful for people.
Pleasing and useful.
There's a couple in the chat if you want me to say them.
Great. If you want to read the two out in the chat, and then we'll go to someone else in the room.
Yeah, so intentionally planned for use from Phoebe Woodworth, Jeff Coates, and Stephanie Cuther says design for me is doing something for people.
Excellent. Thanks. The person in the room here?
Gathering requirements, planning, and visualizing.
Okay. Guidance, requirements, planning, and visualizing. Great. Thanks, Waleed. So thanks to everyone for those things. All of those things are design. Many of the things you've said are different aspects of the design and ways of thinking about design. The way we're talking about design in this particular session, and this is part of the part where if you read this and you think, I really wanted to build wireframes and we're not doing that here, I will not be hurt. Get up and go to the session of your dreams. We are not building wireframes. We are talking about design as a mindset and a way of working. And the idea of design as a way of navigating uncertainty. And the way design is often practiced in modern engineering and software and engineering practices, as well as physical design practices today. It is often about trying to come up with something to suit an unclear set of specifications and coming up with the specifications as you go by learning and listening and adapting to the information as you get it. Design as a way of working is about empathy. It's empathizing with your users and letting what you hear shift your perspective. A really critical part of user-centered or human-centered design, I'm going to use those terms interchangeably because some people have strong feelings about whether it's human or user. Use whatever works in the communities you're working. But a big part of thinking about design in this way is really not designing for yourself. You are designing for the people who are going to use what it is you build, and that might mean not you. Gretchen, Katie, please come up to the front. It's okay. We just need you to be at a table with other people in art supplies. We're going to be talking about designing as a way of reframing, practicing looking at a problem from different angles. And we're looking to, again, sort of be inventive and resourceful and serve the needs of others. This is a commonly put out 5-stage framework of design. It has these 5 stages. This is from Interaction Institute, which is a great resource, and all of these resources are in the collaborative notes documents. Anything I have pasted in here is in the collaborative notes as a resource for you to look at later. These are kind of the 5 stages of user-centered design: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. We are going to be working mainly in these first 3 stages today, primarily the first 2. In part, that is because, in my experience and my experience working in this space, that is often a space that we often don't get as much time to practice. We get pushed to prototype, and maybe we get a chance to test, but we don't always get a chance to hang out in the space where we're really doing that deep listening. So that's part of what we're going to be doing today, too. So let's get started. Are we all kind of in a place where we can find a pair? We have even numbers. Yes, we have a 5 here, but we'll make that work. Everybody online, JC is going to be putting you into groups. We are going to make blind contour portraits. Yes, this is excellent. Some of you know what we're about to do. Forget that. We're just going to start from square one of what these are doing. Coyote Central, lovely local design arts studio in Salem. Blind contour portraits are, you're going to pair up with someone or make a trio as needed. Do a quick introduction, who you are, where you're from, your name. Just do that. You're going to do those introductions. I'm walking through the steps before you actually do them. Then we're going to do 30 seconds of drawing. To do a blind contour drawing, this is fast. And I warn you, much of what we're doing today is going to feel fast. It's going to feel like you don't have enough time. And that is somewhat by design, because oftentimes we don't have enough time. So we're also practicing that muscle of doing the best we can and being thoughtful and intentional about what we do with the time we have. So if you need to take a deep breath, get ready to do things fast. Great. So we're going to give you 30 seconds to draw. Whatever piece of paper, we gave you a big piece of paper. You can have your favorite piece of paper. The picture this. You are going to look only at, can we move that off to the side? You are going to look only at your partner. You're not going to look at your piece of paper. You're not going to look elsewhere in the room. We just want you to look at your partner. Keep your pen on your paper at all times and attempt to draw that person. That's it. Blind contour drawing. Then at the end of 30 seconds, we're going to show each other our drawings. Waleed, king of time, are you ready for 30 seconds? Yep. So we got 1 minute to do the intro first. Find your pairs, get into your breakout rooms on Zoom, and introduce yourself to your person. What was that? That's all right. Sure, do the 1 minute. All right, your 1 minute of introductions is up. 1 minute of introductions is up. Don't make me do the clapping exercise because I will do the clapping exercise. Are we doing the clapping exercise? Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. Good. Oh, look, everybody in the room, you're ready to teach kindergarten. You're set. We are getting ready for our 30 seconds of drawing, remember? Look only at your person. We'll tell you when to start. Some of you might have already done this as an advanced thing. Keep your pen on the paper and go. Everyone, pencils up. Show your drawings to your partner. People online, share your drawings in your breakout rooms. Take a few minutes and make sure to thank your partner for their work of art. Thank them. This is much better. All right, everybody on the line, if you're willing to, if you're comfortable, please hold your portraits up. And if you're willing to hold them up online, we're going to take a screenshot. We're going to take a picture of all your art in the room. Show us your amazing art. Look at this art. Look at all the art you all just created. Wow, amazing. Yes, so much art. Are we getting good art online, JC?
There's like I can't force them to come faster than like.
Oh, that's all right. People online in the breakout rooms are having too much fun.
A couple of people are already back if you want to ask them.
So just take a moment before we move on to the next exercise and just reflect to yourself. How did you feel when you did that? Just write something down, maybe write it on a sticky note. Just take a moment and reflect on how that experience was for you to do blind contour drawing, or how it was to be drawn by a person you've just met. if you're comfortable sharing something about what you experienced to that, for those of you online, please feel free to put an emoji in the chat or a note that you reflected on. And for those of you in the room, Waleed will walk around, and if you want to share something on mic, he will give it to you.
Oh, I just wanted to say how hard it was to visualize without looking. That was tough.
Yeah, for me, it felt almost stressed, challenging, and somewhat rude when looking down at what I was able to duplicate as a representation of somebody else.
Great. Anything that you're seeing in the chat, Kit or JC?
Yeah, Stephanie said that she's worried that they'd offend their partner. Although Shannon is showing their drawing right now.
So that is a great example online that someone was concerned that they might have misheard or misobserved or recorded the wrong thing when listening to someone, when observing them. The other person, one, apparently in this case, doesn't feel that way, so that's nice. Two, is maybe in some way happy to truly be seen and looked at, even just for 30 seconds. It can be very hard for someone to look at you for 30 seconds, to let yourself be looked at for 30 seconds. We often don't make eye contact that long with humans, ever. At the same time, many people have a desire to be truly heard and seen and understood. And even if you feel like you didn't do justice to them, you gave them your full attention. And that is a big part of user research, is that level of truly listening and seeing and trying to capture, recognizing it may not be perfect, but doing what you can as part of thinking about design, is that deeper listening. So we're going to move to another exercise, which is experience mapping. Has anyone in the room done an experience map before? Has anyone on the line done an experience map before? We got a couple people in the room who are like, experience mapping is my jam. If you've ever done a design class about experience mapping, they have almost certainly shown you the European rail map. People in design love this experience map. It's really great. So I'm showing you, I need the big mic back. People in the design world love this experience map often for a couple of reasons, which is mainly to say you can make them super complicated, but they also have these same three elements that I showed you that we talked about a little bit before, which is about like your listening, the 5 stages of design, empathizing, moving into ideating and shipping the design challenge, and crafting design questions around it. And there's a core part of experience mapping, which I will also sometimes call journey mapping. They're somewhat used interchangeably. Those of you who want to nerd out about the terminology, we can talk about that later. But experience mapping and journey mapping is at the heart tracking someone's progress through something over time. This European rail experience map is everything that someone does from the moment they think about buying a ticket for the European rail system. So this is web design, front end, back end, all the systems, but it has these 3 core elements that are key in thinking about experience mapping or journey mapping. What is the person doing? What are they thinking? And what are they feeling? That is what you're trying to capture when you do an experience map. You are trying to figure out what steps they are taking to click on a website, to look at your data, to navigate to an FTP thing, but you also want to know what the experience is like for them. Is this easy? Is this delightful? Does this look like a website they use every day? Is this unfamiliar? Is this terrifying? Does this feel rude? So it's capturing both the action and the sentiment. And the experience mapping is a very commonly done thing in UX design. You actually record somebody going through the website and have them talk you through it. It is a legitimately accepted practice for federal government agencies. It passes the Paperwork Reduction Act test because you can always record people testing a federal product that you use. That is an exemption. So just note that's a USDS approved process. But we are all now going to practice journey mapping, again, with your partners, to go through it ourselves and see how to use it as a record and a tool. So again, these kind of 3 elements, what the person is doing at a certain point in time, what they're thinking, and what they're feeling. So you're gonna make a journey map on a piece of paper. There's more paper up here. If you already feel like you've used your paper, please additional art supplies in the room. Those of you online, we don't even know what art supplies you're using. You might have a giant mural you're painting on your wall. Awesome, do it. And this is what I want you to draw on your map, on your piece of paper, is a vertical line and a horizontal line. The horizontal line is time, and the vertical line is positive versus negative. You can define positive versus negative however you kind of want for yourself. It can be high intensity, low intensity, or it can be, it made me feel great, it made me feel not so great. But you need to be able to chart things over time, and what you are doing, what you are thinking, and what you are feeling, to do an experience map for you. And you're gonna map your day, yesterday. Yesterday's a really easy one, because you probably remember it well. You remember what you did, and you might remember what you're thinking, feeling. If you wanna pick another day in your life, go for it. But you're gonna make a journey map for that day, and then you are later going to talk about it. So this is where I asterisk again, like, maybe don't pick the most traumatic day of your life. If you don't want to talk about that with someone in the future, pick something you're happy to talk about. Most of us are not designing data services and websites for the most traumatic days of people's lives. Maybe we are if we're doing disaster response, but in many cases, like, it's okay for us to practice on things that are somewhat low stakes. Here's an example of one I did. So they don't have to be super fancy. This is a day I had, and I charted how I was feeling at the beginning of the day, and then as my day progressed, how I was feeling over it until right before I got to go to bed. I think it's great to just make little doodles rather than write words about what you did and how you felt. But if you're someone who likes to use words. However you want to do it, you're going to get about 3 minutes to make your map of your day in question. And King of Time Waleed is going to get ready for a 3-minute timer. This is solo work. Those of you online will also get 3 minutes, and let's go. Very loud, okay.
Sorry.
I'm just thinking of the people online who might have headphones. So apologies if we startle anybody. That is the end of your journey mapping time. Please sort of wrap up what you have done with your journey map. Yes, whatever you did was awesome, just as you did with your contour drawing. Do you just want to hold up some journey maps in the air so we can get a picture of some journey maps? If you want to hold up your journey maps to the screen, look at this, look at all this work. Wow, some people are like off the charts, impressive. Some people drew add-on charts. There's like nested tables going on here. Relational databases. Some people are going off the paper. This is fantastic. Very good job. So we're going to go back into your pairs or groups, and we're going to give you a bit of time to share in more detail, and it's going to be a little bit structured, but we're not going to necessarily be we're going to give you suggestions about time. And if those of you who are in smaller groups want to go to the back because it's easier to hear, we understand. Those of you online have nice quiet breakout rooms. Oh, we already did the slide, yay. We're going to do why questions. So what we're going to do when we go back into a group is first, each of you is going to get a minute to just explain. You can go straight into whys if you want, but you just get a solo minute to explain your map to your partner. This is what I did, this is what happened, this is how I felt about it. No questions. Give the person a minute to just walk through it. Then you can trade. You can do your 1 minute. Each of you gets your 1 minute to explain. But 1 minute, no questions, no interruptions, just let the other person talk. Then we're going to go into why questions. We're going to be moving into a kind of a design phase because we want you to focus in on some aspect of your partner's journey that you might want to design around. Think about something that would help your partner do a thing that is different from what they are currently doing, feeling, or experiencing. The basic kind of key thing of design is figuring out what the design challenge is and what the question is. This is your chance to hear, where is there an opportunity, or where is there something that might be something you could support? So you're listening and you're asking questions about why, but you want them to be open-ended, and it is very important for you to withhold judgment. So sometimes when people go into doing design, you make a list of all your personal assumptions and your biases before you even go in to do an interview, because you want to make sure that you kind of know what you're bringing with you so that you're going to listen to what the other person is saying. So if the person says, the first thing I did was wake up at 5 a.m. and get on my dirt bike, and you're like, dirt biking sucks, I can't believe they ever thought of that. Does not matter. Your user was very happy that they got to get up at 5 a.m. and get on their dirt bike. You need to know that about them because that's the person you're designing with and for. So ask questions about who else was there. What was the space like? What mattered to you? Why did this matter to you? Ask these questions. Listen to understand. Withhold your judgment. And one other thing about when you're listening to the other person, you can, if you want, draw a mirror map. So they're talking about their day. They may be showing you their day, but as you take notes, don't just take notes in words. Take notes by copying the shape of the graph. Take notes by seeing if you can capture physically with your arm and your muscles what they did. It can be another helpful way of gathering information because now you're at the phase that as data people, you know very well, documentation matters. And you're going to get through this design process that we're only doing a small bit of today, but you want all of this documentation as much as you can, because at some point you might get to that prototyping and testing phase and be like, wow, my users do not like this thing I built at all. I wonder why that is. And then it can be very helpful to go back to these squiggles and doodles and things that you captured very early in the process that can help remind you, oh, this thing that they said, I might not be emphasizing that. I might not be focused on that. So you're documenting when the other person explains it to you. Kit, are you ready? Do I want to do a demo?
Yeah.
Ooh, is Kit on mute?
No, I'm not on mute.
Okay, great. Are you ready to ask me some questions about my day?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
except I'm on 2 microphones, so that's bad. Let me start with my day. Okay, here's my day. I'm just going to explain it really quick, and then you can ask me questions. So I got to wake up early, and it was quiet in my house, which it usually is not, and I got to have tea in the quiet. That was really awesome. Then I went to a meeting that I was helping organize, and it was not organized, so it was kind of my fault, and everybody had a lot of questions, and then I had a lot of follow-up work to do. Then I had a one-on-one with one of my contractors, and that went pretty well. We were on track. Then one of the platforms I was using totally crashed, and I realized I was going to have to hire an IT person. That stank. Then I got to go out and see the ocean briefly. That was really cool. It was still there. Good work, ocean. Then I had leftovers, and there were a lot of peas, and I don't really like leftover peas. Then I got to play a new board game with my partner before I went to bed, and I won. So that was exciting. That was my day. What are your questions?
So I'm curious why you felt like the meeting was disorganized and why that made you so sad or so negative.
Well, I feel like doing good meetings is kind of part of my identity, and so that's something that I have assign a lot of meaning to. I am actually working for these people, so I'm like not necessarily fulfilling my deliverables. And I kind of made some assumptions that I knew what was going on, and I didn't like check in with everybody before the meeting to be like, are we ready to be this phase of the project? It turns out we were not ready to be at that phase of the project. So I felt, like I had been foolhardy and I had made a mistake. How is that helping? Does that help you think about how you might want to work with helping me solve those problems later, Kit?
Yeah, it does.
Do you have any other follow-up questions for me?
Sorry, not at the moment.
Excellent. Well, we can check in while we give everybody else their sort of 6 minutes to do all of these phases. So these are your phases. You're going to get 1 minute each to just solo explain your maps, however you want to do it. If you want to have one person do all the things first, or if you want to trade off, everybody gets 1 minute uninterrupted explaining time. Then you get about 2 minutes to ask them questions, focusing on these types of why questions. We're going to give you maybe some gentle suggestions around 3 minutes that if you haven't already started switching between partners, you should. But otherwise, you and your partner get 6 minutes to sort of figure out how to get through this explaining and question asking set. Well done, everyone. It's great to see this much engagement and explanation. I'm going to call people I know by name if they're still talking / actively listening. Katie Hoberling. I'm going to call people by name if they're esteemed professors who gave plenary talks who are still sharing and designing in the back. Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us today. Okay. I know I said we were doing things fast. Look, it's 2:40 and we've done so much. Good work, everyone. We're going to take a short action break. Oh, do I have too many things plugged in? action break. Okay. We're going to do this for about 30 seconds, and this works for you people online too. I'd like everybody to stand up if you're able. If you need to be sitting at this point in time, that's fine. You can do it, not sitting. But it's a good thing to do to move around. I want everyone, online or here, to take about 30 seconds. You ready, Willie? And to walk around or move slightly, point at things very definitively. Let's all practice. Point at something like that is the thing. Point. I am pointing at this thing. It's a vent. It's a pattern on the floor. It's someone's shoe. And I want you to call it by the wrong name. So I'm going to go eggplant, hippopotamus, leafy tree bough. Whatever you say is fine. If you say the same thing, if you say orange 6 times, that's great. None of these things are an orange. You're doing great. Walk around and very definitively say tree, car, call it by the wrong name. Ready? Waleed, are we ready to go? 30 seconds, call things by the wrong name. Go. Well, yeah, let people see what's going on. That's perfect. Yeah, that's a great idea. Licorice. Pony. There we go. Woo! All right, your 30 seconds are up. I feel like we had a little bit of a post-lunch malaise in the room. People were thinking a lot about having the correct wrong name for things. There was some deliberating going on where people wanted to make sure they picked a good wrong name. But good work, everybody, going around and giving yourself a little mental break from deep listening to try and let your neurons fire in a slightly different way. We're going to move right on to helping you synthesize and define what you've heard. And as I mentioned, there will be a full reflection and discussion process at the end. We are moving fast because we have such a short time period. We're going to move into the synthesizing part of the emphasize, synthesize, define of design cycle. And we're going to use a process called what, so what, and then now what is what the liberating structure is. In design world, this is what, so what, and then you lead to something called how might we. In design world, how might we or how might we questions are a whole thing. They are a specific framing of a question that is part of getting you to framing a design challenge. And it has these 3 parts. How might you or your team, a resource or tool, how might this thing I built, how might my organization, how might my team, but generally a specific thing or group of people that you're working with, help your partner, the user, the person I just interviewed, everybody I just surveyed, this particular demographic, address a need that you just connected to an insight you just heard in your interview. There's a reason that there are these 3 parts to kind of how might we questions, and that they ask you, even if it feels stilted or structured, to think through all of them. And it goes back in part to what I mentioned earlier about documentation. It's good for you as you start thinking about building, as you start thinking about actually mocking something up or making prototypes or talking to the rest of your team, because you might all do your how might we questions solo and then come back to share them, to be as articulate as possible for the through line about how you got to the thing that you are thinking about based on what you heard. The how might we question is not how might my website look prettier. We are not getting into tools. There is an art to not being too broad or too narrow in how might we question. So this is a description of how might we questions that's quite nice. IDEO made it, they made it for NSF. NSF uses this framework if you go through one of their convergence accelerators. And so the idea behind how might we is it needs to be a question based on a need you heard and something that you heard that that person felt or thought about when they were doing the thing that might be something you could design a response to. So it's not just how might we design a new screen to help people interact with screens. It's not how might we save the world. It's something a little more focused in based on what you just heard your partners say. So here's one based on a journey map that Kit did, that I asked her questions about, and then we did a response to. I heard that she feels better when she gets outside between video calls, and not just takes a break, but actually goes outside. My kind of assumption, inference, insight that I might have talked to her about in an earlier interview, it might just be me reading an interview later, says, okay, time in nature is important. It's energizing for her. It was a high point on her graph. Time in nature is important. So some how might we questions are, how could I create indoor recharge options for when she can't go outside, when the weather's bad? Like, how could I help her recharge when she can't get to nature? Or how might we think about how her work schedule can accommodate nature cues differently? These are not necessarily perfect how might we questions. Going back to what we just said before, I'm trying to find that just right space that frames the question, but doesn't assume the solution is she has to go outside every 45 minutes. I'm not trying to answer what the solution is. I'm trying to frame up what the question is to be answered. That is what how might we questions are designed to help you do. And in part, that's because you should be talking about them with the rest of your team, with the rest of the people that you work with, and fleshing them out as you go, because they will help you iterate and get feedback based on why you think you are going from what to how might we. So in this case, I'm going to ask you to make columns that look like this: what, so what, and how might we, and take something that you heard, infer an insight that you captured based on a thing that you heard that they thought or felt, and then come up with a couple of how might we questions that are framed like these questions. How might you, and you can have it be you, but if you want to have a hypothetical group that you're working with, or your agency or your organization, help this person address a need connected to something you heard in the interview. We're going to give you about 2 to 3 minutes to come up with these. We'll see how things go in the room. So try to focus on the what, so what, and the what and so what parts. And then come up with at least 2 how might we questions for each what or so what. Yes, question in the back.
I just wanted clarification.
Hello. Hi to Kit online. This is Kelsey. I wanted some clarification if this is for like our work that we're not doing right now, or for the timeline of the experiences that I just heard from.
This is for your partner that you have been working with the whole time, yeah. Because you're going to go back and maybe share some of the things that you heard and what you thought that inspired you to think about it as a design question, and maybe get some quick feedback with them. So this is just practice for what we've been doing in the room, but of course, we are doing this practice so that you can do it wherever you want in your work from here on out.
Hi, Kelsey.
It's a good question in the room is, do you want us only to focus on negative portions? No. A lot of times in design, you do focus on negative pain points or bottlenecks. That's often what you try to design to remove. But in some cases, you might want to say, oh, this is where this person is really excelling. How could I replicate that? Or how could I make more of that happen? And that can be another way to come off of not just focusing on low points. So your choice. Great, everyone. So we have some people who have already been sharing with their partners as they go along, and we have some people who have done solo work, just sitting and filling out their columns about what, so what, now what, how might we. So let's just take like another minute and a half. If you haven't shared something with your partner that you want to share and kind of hear what they say, especially if they think like, whoa, that's a big jump from the what, so what, or especially if they have reflections on your how might we questions, or if you want to refine them based on what you heard. If you've already talked to your partner, that's great. We'll take about 1 more minute if you haven't shared yet to do some sharing. And then, especially for those of you online, that's a good time to say if there's a favorite how might we question or one you're curious about talking about more, drop that in the chat or put that in the collaborative notes document. It's about 1 more minute, and then we'll share out some how might we examples. Great. All right, everyone in the room, please wrap up your conversations and get ready to maybe share one of your how might we questions back with the whole group. We're going to do the clapping, all right? Clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. Clap 3 times if you can hear me. Excellent, good work. Good, we're clapping. All right. JC and Kit, are you seeing any how might we questions in the chat that people want to share? And Waleed, here's the mic to run around.
Not at the moment, but I jumped in a few rooms and people were asking good ones.
Okay, great. Who in the room wants to share an example of a how might we question that they came up with? I know you all came up with some.
Do you want us to start with the what so what first?
Whatever you're comfortable and your partner's comfortable sharing with all of us.
Okay.
Just an example of how you framed a how might we question, and then maybe we can all kind of say in the room like, oh, that makes me think about something I could start trying to design or build for. Does that feel really broad? Does that feel really narrow?
Yeah, okay. So Denise had a pretty positive day yesterday, and the thing that actually stood out the most was the negative space there, the lull between the positive events that she had, where she felt that she didn't have enough time to do things, meaningful things in those breaks between meeting with old friends, going to actual meetings, going to dinner. And so how might we be able to break these bigger events, things that she needs to get done, down into smaller, tractable problems for the time slot that's left, or how to find a way to just enjoy the lull in time and not feel like it's bringing her mood down slightly.
So how might we better match the way the time chunks of her day fit with the way her day feels to her?
Yes.
Like how, yeah, great. In the back.
So Samantha and I both bonded over the fact that we left our dogs yesterday. And so the what is that we like time with our dogs, and the so what is that we want to maximize our dog time and our interactions. And when we leave them, we don't want them to feel that we're leaving them behind because we don't care about them. So the how might we is how might we communicate with our dogs from afar.
Great. I like how you didn't, I think what's good about that is that you didn't just go to like, how can we see pictures of our dogs? You took it to that big like level feeling, which is how can we increase that feeling of connection, right? Like that's not how might we redesign connection, but that's kind of getting you to that just right, like connection to an animal that I care about. How do I design for that?
Also,
Another one in the room, and then we'll go to Kit on the online, or whoever wants to come off mute online.
Well, funnily, Mike and I have also similar experience yesterday because for him it was actually today. We both experienced travel anxiety. I was traveling from afar. He was traveling slightly from proximity, and so his low point in the travel was that Google offered him a route that he was not exactly familiar with, and he had to take a bus instead of flight train, which he was not comfortable about because he didn't know what's going to happen and how much time it will take. And this was the what. And so my take out of that was a new route caused anxiety, and what might we, for me, is how can I help to avoid anxiety related to the new route, and possibly to propose a tool that will convince Mike that the proposed route is actually better than alternative.
Yeah, so it's an anxiety management or mitigation design question based on certain experiences like travel. All right, it sounds like we had some folks online who wanted to share.
Yeah, so this was written in the chat before the previous one, and there is a huge theme with dogs. Stephanie said, how might we make it easier to find the owner of a stray dog because one of the participants had a stray dog to show up at their house? And Phoebe said, how might we find ways to bring dogs to the workplace? So.
Excellent. How might we bring dogs to the workplace is pretty specific, and also tied to some of these larger things. So again, one of the rules of best practices of design, if at all possible, it's not always possible, is to have at least two people, have a team, have someone you can brainstorm with. So if we set up a design team about dog connection, right, you would all be going off and doing interviews and surveys and talking to people who missed their dogs and left their dogs and wanted to stay connected with dogs. And you would all come together to talk about these how might we questions. And one of you might say, how can we reunite stray dogs because people and their dogs want to be connected? How can we make people bring their dogs to work because people want to be connected with their dogs at all times? Are people in chat being like enough dog talk? Is that what you're saying,
They're
JC?
being really funny in the chat.
Okay, excellent. JC, what are they saying in the chat?
Share one. They said, how do we prevent dogs from using ChatGPT?
Very important. And yet also, would it be bad for dogs to have more? Never mind. Now we're getting to like dog-run society, and that's a whole different design problem. So you can see how, like, if we had a team of people, you all went out, maybe each of you did 2 to 3 different user interviews about this issue of dogs, and you all came back together. You'd be like, this is what I heard, this is what I heard. And together, you would try and find that good middle level of framing the design question, which is like, people who are at work and feel disconnected from their dogs need a solution to improve connection. What could we design? So in the interest of time and giving us lots of like debrief and reflection time, we're just going to give you 1 minute to unleash the part of you that I know some of you have been holding back, which is, I'm an engineer, I'm going to build something to fix this. I know you want to build a thing, you want to build a tool, you want to, wireframe a website, you want to sketch out a prototype. If we were going through a full design cycle, that's what we'd be doing next. If we were doing a design sprint, we would move into drawing sketches of the thing you're going to build, doing plays and skits of the thing that you're going to build and how that person would interact with it, making things out of paper, making things on Figma, making things out of shadow puppets, whatever is handy, you would start thinking about what you're going to build and what you're going to design. And often in design, that's sometimes where we start. We say, like, I have these tools, I already built this thing, how can I iterate on that? But part of what I was hoping we could explore in the session today is remembering to go back to that first principle, which is everything you build is going to be used by someone. How can you keep them in mind as you're thinking about designing? Even from the very beginning of thinking about collecting data, at the end of the day, data has impact because it's used. So who do you want to keep in mind as you're thinking about doing something as prosaic as building a data pipeline, all the way through building the services? And so today, before we close, you're going to get 1 minute to just go crazy, use whatever supplies you have, just draw things, build that thing. Based on your how might we questions, what do you want to build? Well, King of Time, give us 1 more minute. Everybody get those things that were at the back of your head the whole time. You're like, I can't wait to build blockchain for dogs. Talk about it. Just get those ideas out. Go for it. That's it.
Yeah, there are a lot of really great sprays.
Yes.
We had a really funny bunch this side. I mean, I wasn't in the breakout room, so I don't know, but the chat. Yeah. You were asked what your font is. What's this font? Oh, I can talk later.
Do I have to stop share? I do.
No. Well, unless you want to, but no, we could just. Do you just refresh it? That's it?
Should.
Okay, yeah. Well. This is the new one. Wrong button. There we go.
All right, thanks, everyone. If any of your ideas are going to be million-dollar AI startups, let's talk. Let's get this going. So we're going to move on to debriefing. We had a question about fonts. I'll share the fonts later. All these slides will be here for people who love typefaces. But before we move into debriefing and talking about this period of time, just a round of applause for your partners, for you, for everybody online. Well done, everyone. Thank you for jumping in and taking this ride on a very short design sprint, a very short beginning of intro to design. As I mentioned, almost everything I used or cited or repurposed or remixed is in that resources document, the collaborative notes document, along with a lot of other stuff, as well as how to run this training yourself. And this is half of a 3-hour training. So, but design sprints are designed to be 5 days. So they don't have to be an extremely long process. You can do them in short periods of time. We were going to do kind of a 1, 2, 4 all, but I feel like you've all been working in small groups and talking to each other, reflections. So we're thinking we might just open it up to anybody to reflect on the session. We have some reflection sessions for people to respond to. But if you just want to talk about your experience, or if you just have questions about what the heck is this thing that Kate and Kit and JC and Waleed had me do for an hour and 7 minutes, we can take that too. And then we'll go to a break at 3:30. Oh, and do identify yourself for the people online.
Sorry.
I haven't been asking for that much, my bad.
I'm Gretchen Gerke from Environmental Data and Governance Initiative. I guess one thing that I was struck by is how challenging it is to find that right size, how might we? And I'm just curious if there are best practices for how to kind of home in on what the right size is and to take away your biases with, I mean, you kind of go into it thinking there's already going to be a solution, or else you might not have if you've already built a team to build a solution, you might already have some ideas about what that solution might be, so you have the skill sets there. And so I'm just curious kind of how to check your biases and if there's any best practices for that.
Yeah, and I want to open this up, like literally, as Susan's sort of laughing about this, like I threw this session into ESIP because I was like, oh, well, this is something I've done before, and it seems like there's a lot of maybe an interactive design session would be fun for ESIP. It's my first ESIP meeting. I have met meeting all of you for the first time. This was a crazy idea. Thank you, ESIP, for letting me do it. But I put the call out on the Slack to be like, who else does design? Somebody here must do a lot of how might we questions. Kit was like, I've done some how might we questions. But I want to open it up if there are people online or in the room who are like, I actually do this all the time. So if you are a person who are like, I have those resources that Gretchen was talking about, please add them to the document. Please raise your hand online or raise your hand here. No. Katie Hoberling from the Open Environmental Data Project.
Thanks, I'm Katie Hoberling from the Open Environmental Data Project. I don't know if this is a best practice, but I think it's been helpful when we've been like a third party doing it. So like we're not the ones actually building the thing. We're kind of the conduit between, like the specific example I'm thinking of is like the California Water Boards and then different people who use their data, and we have less of a stake in what I mean, we do have a stake, I'm a Californian, but like I have less of a direct stake in what it ends up looking like from either end, and so I feel like that can be a way like to either find a third party or to be that third party yourself if you want to be part of that design process.
I'll add a couple of suggestions onto that. So one is the Stanford Design School, where much of this work is from and where I studied, has a lot of resources, specifically looking at how might we questions, including worksheets and exercises you can do with your teams with like how to redesign ice cream. So it's sort of practice. So a lot of it is just practice. A lot of it is what I would say for those of you who have been in a project or an organization where you're trying to do vision, mission, and what are we going to do this year? It's that same kind of part of your brain. Because when you're writing to this question we have in the corner, and I apologize that I keep forgetting your name, remind me your name. Yes. Maria made the question when we said, what is design, when we started? And you talked about specifications and guidance, and those are essential to helping someone build the thing when you get to the building stage. But at the end of the day, when you're evaluating how well that worked, it's coming back in some ways to that how might we question. If we asked you to build us a thing that made us feel more connected to our dogs, and then we eventually got to the point where we put out an RFP to be like, it has to be Web 508 compliant, and it has to have the following accessibility features for dogs so that they can use ChatGPT and tell us how they're feeling. Like we might get into like super specifications. I see Ian, who I know a little bit in background, because you work on data services. So you know people are coming to you all the time, be like, build me this repository. Also, it has to work from Mars, and I like dogs, right? And you're like, okie doke, I got to make trade-offs. But if they said to you at the end of the day, no matter what you build, no matter what platform you build it on, I want to feel more connected to my dog at the end of using it, that is an evaluation criteria. And that can be your how might we question, is that kind of like North Star design goal. And the way to do it is just doing it over and over again, doing it in practice, doing it with your design team members, and then sometimes, if appropriate, going back to the community you're working with and saying, here's what we heard from you. It seems like these might be the things that we should be framing as our design challenge. How can you more readily be aware of variances in your air quality? How can you feel more tapped into regulatory processes that might affect your community, right? Like, those seem very simple, but it's that iterative process of being like, we talked about it, and it seems not so much like you need to know the number of the air quality, but you need to know if it triggers something that you can go to your city council member about. So you get fired up when there's a regulatory tie, not just what the number of air quality is, right? Totally hypothetical. By the way, don't go build that unless you've actually talked to a community. But that's part of what you're trying to get at the how might we, is again, kind of going back to that experience mapping. What are they doing? What are people thinking? What are they feeling? And understanding that if you just build a thing that's like, here's the number, but what people are really like, I'm frustrated because I don't know what to do with that number, then that data system and service that you built isn't going to feel satisfying for them, and they're not going to use it. Other things online or questions? Thank you, JC, for making sure that people can see through our tiny Zoom cams in the room every so often.
I could read one.
Yeah, oh, Wally, can you bring the mic over to JC?
Okay, I was just going to read something that Stephanie said on here. Well, someone else said John for the win with the dog. But Stephanie said, I'm curious to find out more about experience maps. I did not have many expectations other than that this would be interactive, which it was. I would give a little bit more time for the individual activities, especially as there were a few minor delays online, like a 20-second delay in a 1-minute activity has an impact. And then she had to leave.
Wow, okay, awesome. I'm glad we're recording the chat, so we'll get that feedback if we do this session again to try and give people more time. As I mentioned, it is rushed. It's sort of a design thing, but too much rushed isn't helping, but that's good to hear. And in terms of experience mapping, you can get a whole O'Reilly certification in experience design mapping and use their platform. If you want to go into experience design mapping, I can connect you to people who love experience mapping. So yes, that is a thing you can practice and maybe even get a little badge on if you want to do that. But people who are like serious user research do that. There's also in the resource list a list of the research methods, including how might we questions on other tools, that was put together by 18F and US Digital Service before some of the recent changes, and it includes archived versions of that that are still acceptable. So for those of you who are working with state and federal agencies that might have specific constraints around user research and how you can talk to people, those can be really good resources because they were already vetted by people within the federal government, and they have things like PRA compliant, or okay if you're working under a FOIA situation. So they'll have those things as well as being grounded in kind of best design practices. Do you have other feedback for us or questions, or do you just want like a little extra 15 minutes of your break? Because that is also fine. Maria.
So I just want to reflect one reflection that I notice about myself. It is really hard to start to listen and not judge. Because when I come to collect requirements about something that I slightly know about, right? I already have a solution in my head, and if it does not fit to what my client wants, I'm thinking directly, are you stupid? So it's something to work on.
That is such a great observation to have. It's really, like, kudos to you for noticing that about yourself. I think all of us who have any expertise at all do that, right? We're like, oh, I don't know how to fix that. I'm a build a thing. And like, I bake a ton. Somebody's like, well, what if I just double the baking soda? And I'm like, not a good idea. But maybe they need to learn, or maybe they really like their baked goods salty. Like, it's good to ask some questions. But this is also a little bit to Gretchen's comment about, like, how do you think about your assumptions? There's a resource in the resource guide called Liberatory Design. That's a group out of the Bay Area that's really worked with DEI and communities that have been under-resourced, under-invested in. And they have some tools where you just, like, you write down your identities, you write down your skill sets, and then after you do your design research, where you usually go and listen to people and ask those why questions during interviews, you collect journey maps, you do all of that. When you're sitting together with your team, you might even put those assumptions up on the wall, and you trust your team, and they might say things like, oh, hey, Kate, it looks like you're addressing that as someone who actually knows a lot about user research, and our person didn't actually say that. Or it seems like you might be jumping ahead of where this person was. One of the things about user design, and maybe people in this room can also talk to this too, for those of you who build data services, is that you're designing for the users that you have, not the users you want to have. So this issue of capacity building, I'll just now put on my hat on as the co-chair of the UN Ocean Decades Data Coordination Committee, where we are trying to create data ecosystem implementation guides that could work in any country, in any data system in the world, so in multiple languages. And so coming up with guidance for how to build a good ocean data ecosystem is really different if you're Vanuatu than if you're Germany, for many reasons. And the people we are working with who are like, I know where Germany's data system is right now. I'm not trying to call it Germany. It could be any of these countries. But like, I know where their system is right now. And I know it's at like 80% good, and I want to get it to 95% good. And they write out that plan. And then we have to be like, we can't give that to these other partners who are not at 90, who are not going from 85% to 95, who are going from like 10 to 15. And so people are like, well, we can't dumb it down. There's one good way to build this. We have to get everybody here. If we make this too reductionist, then like everybody's going to be able to get away with bad data systems. And one of the challenges and the reasons to do this type of user research is there's kind of a sort of a inherent assumption in this type of user research, which is a tool that gets used with your ethical guidelines, like we're not trying to build the paperclip maximizer if you've ever played that game, right? Like you're not trying to design something to destroy the world, but something that your user will actually use and engage with, even if it's not the thing you think needs to be built eventually, is better for you to get buy-in and go back and build the next thing with them than the thing that you want that your user's not ready to use or that doesn't meet a need for them. So getting back to this issue of like, when do I feel like I'm bringing my biases? When do I feel like I'm bringing my expertise? It's good to note that and keep track of that. But there's that tension between saying, I'm someone who has expertise in this area. I know this would be a really great data system. I know this is built on a stack that I trust. I know that there's so much good about this. And what I'm hearing is that the problem my user wants me to solve is not that. You have to make those choices about building something that your user's going to use or something that you think maybe you can bring them to, or that you have to frame in a different way. And that's really at that heart of what we talked about very early on in the beginning about this thing being design as a way of navigating uncertainty using empathy. Where are you going to weight the certainty? Where are you going to weight what people want and what you want to have exist in the world? Maybe that's a good place to wrap up and give everybody a little extra time. Thank you all for coming. Thank you everyone online. Amazing.